Hey everybody, I just wanted to hop on here. As promised, I'm doing these shorter videos right now, just in lieu of the Sunday morning longer message. And I started this new section this morning in Hebrews chapter 2, verses 10 through 18. And I was just looking at Hebrews 2:10, and in that there's just some really interesting stuff, and I just kind of wanted to take a second here and unpack a little bit of it. And Hebrews 2:10, if you pull out your Bible and read it, it says, "For it was fitting for him, for whom are all things, and through whom are all things, in bringing many sons to glory, to perfect the author of their salvation through suffering." Um, so what that means, there's a bunch of words I want to break out real quick. And they're fitting for him, God, for whom all things and through whom are all things, in bringing many sons to glory, in saving mankind, right? To perfect the author of salvation, to perfect Jesus through suffering. And that's just, all that stuff just seems really ironic right there. The word fitting is the word prepo. It's where we get the word prepare, I think. And it's a word that means um, it means to be proper, to be obvious, to be suitable, right? The word perfect is another interesting word as well. The word perfection, the word for perfection is, it doesn't necessarily mean something is flawless as much as it means that it is completed. Like if something is perfected, I've perfected a guitar technique, which I have not. It means it might mean flawless, but it might mean that it is complete, right? Something is perfect in this sense is finished, right? The work is done. There's nothing left to do. So I guess perfect would mean flawless if there was nothing left to do. But think of it more as being a work that is actually done. You're finished with it, right? Meaning, so the word means complete or whole or adequate. And in Jewish literature, the idea of perfection is actually applied to, at times, to death as the completion of life. Perfection in Hebrews has to do with fully completing a course, making it to the end, right? Jesus was made perfect through suffering. Therefore, that connotes his full obedience to his mission of death on the cross, and perhaps the adequacy of that act bringing the children of God to glory. Okay, so Jesus was perfectly sinless, right? He was already a finished work in himself, right? He was perfectly sinless. He was perfectly loving, sent to die for an imperfect creation. Okay, in order for him to accomplish that work, he had to meet the same end in death, right? So he had to die as us. So being perfected and being an author. The word author is interesting as well, right? Because the word author translates out kind of as the word trailblazer. Like you can take a trailblazer, somebody who beats a path, right, for others behind. Like when I was in the Marine Corps, we had a 6-man recon team, and the point man, we called him the forward bullet sponge, but he was always the guy who had to break brush, right? He's the one with the machete who would have to chop through bushes and whatever, and we would trade off that duty. But the point man, I was glad I never had to walk point, because that was a hard job. It was a really tough job. So anyways, the whole thing there, at the end of it, it said that Jesus had to be perfected through suffering. And so Jesus had to be completed through suffering in order that he could be a perfect sacrifice. And here's what that means. Here's what that means. So why was it necessary for Jesus to be perfected through suffering? Well, if the word perfected carries with it a sense of being completed, would it make sense for a representative of the human race who is going to die for us and effect our salvation? Would it make sense for that individual to not be subject to the suffering of humanity? He was born, he lived a human existence, he died. And all of that, he was able to represent the human experience on the cross and become an adequate substitute. He would be only if he could experience the same suffering as humanity. So think about it like this. If you look at Jesus' pain on the cross and the pain of his life, the frustrations, the irritations, he can stump his toe, he can get sick. If you can look at him and say, man, was I really worth all that suffering? If you can look at Jesus and you know somebody has suffered for you, they have felt great emotion or felt great physical discomfort, pain, right? Even this excruciating pain that Jesus felt on the cross. When you look at that, you're like, wow, holy smokes. When people do something for you, if it was easy for them to do, you're like, whatever, man. You didn't really give up anything. But in this, we look at Jesus and we're like, oh my gosh, you came from heaven, right? No pain, presence of God, angels everywhere, whatever it is. There's just no discomfort whatsoever in heaven. You came to earth, lived this life, and you actually suffered this horrible, horrible death, right? And for me, it makes us stop and think, wow, man, it makes you feel like you were worth it. You know what I'm saying? If Jesus went to a cross and he was somehow in his deity to be able to, block pain, block suffering, just kind of like, up there on the cross or beating him like, whatever, man, it doesn't hurt. If that was the case, we would not identify with him. Jesus went beyond just being in a human form to identify with us, to identify in us emotionally so that he could empathize with us and we could empathize with him, right? The connection was really complete in the very fact that Jesus could experience terrible pain. So the very fact that Jesus could feel pain, that Jesus could bleed, that he could die, in all of that means that Jesus was the complete package, right? He was sinless. He could feel pain. He could feel sadness. He could feel anger, and he could die. And he did all that, right? That means he was the perfect sacrifice. He was perfected in his humanity so that he could be a sacrifice for us on the cross. His suffering and death were final and maybe the most vital common factor between Jesus and man. So the very fact that Jesus was human, right, that he felt pain, that he suffered terribly, and that he died on a cross, right, is how he conquered death, which is a whole nother little video, right? So anyways, just something to think about. Why did Jesus have to suffer like that? Because if he didn't, we would look at Jesus and say, he's not my sacrifice. That guy, we would look at him as a fake God. We would look at him as we would look at him as lesser, as less than God. We would look at him like, whatever, man, you didn't really suffer. And that's the perfection, and that's the beauty of it, is that Jesus was willing to take it all on. When he said that he would represent us, he was like, man, he drank that cup. He drank every last drop of humanity. He drank every last every last drop of suffering. And that's why I follow him, and that's why I look at him and I'm like, oh man, that dude was tough, man. That dude was hardcore. That dude was he was tougher and more man than I'll ever be. And I just makes me want to be like him. Makes me want to be a better man for my wife. Makes me want to be a better defender for the people around me. It really inspires me to be fearless, to shake my fist in the face of pain and discomfort and just really rise above. So anyways, just a few thoughts for you. Love you guys. Hope you'll have a good week.